so I got used to like the mechanics and stuff like that of Call of Duty, and found Apex really challenging. So
Mhm.
I never really got into it, and then came back to it and ended up really liking, like, like you're able to like climb and all that kind of shit, and that there's an actual like ranked system, so you
Mhm.
can like go up against people that are like similarly skilled and stuff like that, and I liked the challenge of it, trying to get better and stuff like that.
Okay, so you enjoy like the process of climbing.
Like I'm very competitive, and I like having full movement mechanics.
Okay, you're very competitive. All right. Okay. What are some aspects of your personality that influence how you experience the game, how you play it, and everything?
Um, what do you mean by that?
So some
Aspects
people
of my
are super anxious and like they'll play back. Some people are super stubborn and they'll play forward. Some people are uh some people like have a hard time being motivated to play. Some people get a lot of like social pressure. Some people get angry. Anything.
so
Like there's no right way to answer it. Just whatever comes to your mind. Like
yeah.
um yeah, like
So basically
how
for
does
me,
basically how does who you are affect how you play the game? Just
okay, so basically I'm extremely observational IRL. So like if there's something off about a person's personality,
mm,
or like a way that they're moving or something like that, right? I pick up on it immediately. Or if they have like people with anxiety and stuff like that, if they have anxiety or like hard times with certain things, I can notice kind of like their ticks and kind of things like that because I'm super observational. So like when I play the game, I'm not just one to just immediately like, oh, there's a team over there, I'm just gonna rush in and jump them.
yeah.
You know, I like to be able to observe what's going on first and be able to make a play up on how, whether we should be flanking or if we should even take the fight, that kind of stuff. And I'm a big team player too, because like when I was younger, I was on a wrestling team, right? And that's more of an individual sport, but you go in as a team.
Mm-hmm.
You condition your team and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that way everybody gets better as
Yeah.
they're doing their own individual thing, right? So I think being, more analytical and stuff like that, I kind of take a little bit of a back seat and try to figure out my position and how I can actually get in there and get the most damage done and that kind of shit.
Okay. Okay. Um so yeah, what percent do you play versus how much do you watch and who do you watch?
Mm, I have been playing for like 7 months. Before I had a job, I used to play 8, 9 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've watched just a couple of guys like ACU and oh, what's that guy? He calls himself the Warlord.
No idea.
Really, 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 really angry guy.
No clue.
Oh, I can't remember his name. Um, and there was one other guy I followed on Twitch. Watch him. And then there's like TikToks and stuff that are my TikToks like filled with Apex
Okay.
streamers and stuff like that.
All right. Um So you said formerly you played like 8 or 9 hours a day when you didn't have a job. So what is like your day to day sort of thing right now?
So right now I work 12-hour continental shifts. So it's all broken up. I work like 14 days a month. So I'm like 2 days on, 2 days off,
Mm,
3 days on, 2 days off, and then I switch over my schedule. So from a day shift to a night shift, and it's like 7 to 7 every time.
yeah.
So I play the 2 days off and the 3 days off every single chance I get, and I play, like 5, 6 hours a day, depending on how long. Because like I said, I play with my sister and that a lot, right? So
Mm.
however long she's on, I usually end up playing with her for until she gets off.
All right. So on any given day that you can spend any certain amount of time, um, like playing and watching, what percent like playing do you do versus watching? Some people will
I'd
watch.
say
Some people will watch and play like 50-50, like they do just as much watching as they do playing. What about you?
I'd probably say it's about a 70-30
70
playing and
30
watching.
playing and watching?
Yeah.
Okay. Bad. Um all right, none of that is going to be brought up until we notice patterns basically.
You have to check
Okay.
out Ultra Ego Vegeta. Like cocky or whatever. His destructive.
And you said you normally you play pubs, right? So this is kind of like your first time playing ranked, or like you don't really
I've
play
been
ranked that much.
well, I played ranked heavily when I first started. So I started 3/4 of the way through season 7, and then when season 8 hit, I really got into ranked. I wasn't very good
Mhm.
because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I didn't have like any kind of guidance or anything like that. So I would just kind of like watch videos of like different like different ranked people, right? So like if they were pred or if they were masters or diamond or whatever, right? They all had different advice, but it was for the higher ranks. So then I had to kind of like go through each video and
Yeah,
take
yeah.
certain truths of what like everybody else was saying that like was actually like each person was actually saying it, and then apply, hopefully, like, kind of try to make a truth out of it, just like, apply it to my gameplay and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So
All right.
that's
Destruction power gets
That's good to know.
weaker.
so yeah, so the ranked, it was my first season I got to gold. Second season, so season 9 I got to gold, but by
Maybe
season
a
9
destroyer
I
hanging
had a
around.
job, so
Whereas Goku
I couldn't get on
kind
as
of
much
mastered
and
Ultra
grind
Instinct, but
ranked.
not really at the
Mhm.
same time.
Okay. So, okay, let me share the application so you can hear the comms because I'm gonna pay attention to the comms a little bit because usually that matters. I don't know if it's gonna be super clear for you to hear, but I'll try to like explain what I hear if anything uh is concerning.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That'd be slick. Alright, Soul's your leader, bud. I'll listen to you all match. We got lots of people going fragment.
All right. First, let me ask you, what are you trying to do right now in this moment?
Right now I'm just trying to grab a gun, like trying to find a gun here.
All right, but what's your bigger goal? Like, what is the thing pulling you to grab a gun?
Mm, that I'm not sure. That I always just when I loot up, I immediately go for a couple heals, gray backpack, and a gun. That's usually my biggest thing, especially if I know there's like a team like that could possibly rotate around to us
Mhm.
from a different area. I always try to make sure that I've got a couple heals just in case I don't have a weapon.
Okay, so you're taking
That
into
way,
consideration other people potentially pushing you.
yeah.
Okay. Um. So what if that doesn't happen and you get your loot, everything everything goes fine? Then what do you do after that?
Then I'm looking to rotate to the areas that I saw people off of drop when we're out in the drop ship.
Hmm.
Then I'm looking to go towards those areas to be able to take, like, I always look for like where one team dropped, so
Yeah,
that way I can go for that and have the knowledge of that one team.
yeah, that's good.
That way I can go and hit that one team with my team.
All right. Yeah, that's good. To me, it seems like I'm not sure why.
Are you really doing that right now, bro?
I'm not really sure why you're slowing down here.
60 play.
Like it should kind of be like watching a speedrunner, like cut every corner and save every second when you're looting,
Okay.
because you want to move past as fast as
Backing up.
possible. That phase of the
Okay.
game is like
Find a weapon.
you're not gaining any, like looting is like an indirect benefit. It helps you fight, right? It helps you fight or hold spots. So your macro goal when you're looting should be fighting or holding spots.
Okay.
So you want to avoid looting as fast as possible because it takes away from those goals. Looting is like the hurdle that you have to jump over, and you want to not dwell on those hurdles.
I have a habit.
There are some reasons why like it would slow down. Like sometimes you have to look for info a bit earlier, but over here, like in this VOD, what I see so far, it seems like there's something unnecessary. But like, if you explain more, like why you slow down in these certain parts of looting, it will make a lot more sense. Because there could actually be a good reason, and it could just be lack of experience. So the intent really matters, and not necessarily like execution and skill.
Okay.
So if you have
Yeah, we
any,
usually it's usually just like when we
Yeah,
drop
psych.
off, just because like I don't really have experienced players to play with. Like the guy that I'm playing with plus my sister,
Mhm,
right? We're all like I've been fresh to the game. Well, I was fresh to the game. Like I said, 3 quarters through season 7,
mhm.
but never really had any experienced players play with me or to learn from. So it was just kind of everybody just grabs loot and just goes.
Okay, so
Kind of deal.
it's less of a macro focused activity. Like looting
Yeah.
is like a micro activity. It's kind of macro, but like when we think about it this way, relative to like your mid game goal, which is much more macro, it's like micro, and you're just using that micro to fulfill the macro goal, like the bigger goal.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, so I'm getting I'm getting the idea from what you said at the very beginning to now that like that goal, that mid game goal is not really there. Like you kind of have an idea of what to do after you loot, but you're not. It doesn't seem like it's pulling you through your your indirect activities, or I don't know how to explain it, but I think you know what I mean. Like it's not creating a reason. Like it's not strong enough to create a reason for you to be pushing yourself to loot as fast as possible. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yep.
That's kind of the vibe I'm getting. Need to remember to format this differently for Discord. So when you create a goal like that, like the stronger it gets, your gameplay is basically a string, and the more tension in that string, the more efficient length you can get, right? If you just let the string lay down, like there's no goal, everything's gonna be disorganized and just gonna lay in like a random pattern, right? But if you
Okay.
put something at the very end of the string, you pull it, it's going to get really long. You're going to get maximum value out of it. If we're going to think about it that way, it's kind of.
Yeah. Alright, everybody follow souls. Our little bloodhound. My jump was a little off there.
Rings nearby. 1 minute till close. R301 here.
Thanks, kiddo.
Oh, yep.
Thank you.
Charge rifle way up.
Taking fire. Spotted.
So quiet. I can hear it decently though.
I just need a
Yeah, I
scope
can't hear
and that should
comms
be
or anything
fine.
through this one.
Oh, okay.
I can hear it when I like watch my stream and stuff like that. When I go and watch my playbacks and stuff
That's,
like that.
here, let me go back to screen share since you can't hear the comms anyways.
Somebody's resin up here.
Yep.
Ooh, charge rifle.
Yeah. Seems like you're getting distracted easily,
Okay.
which kind of reflects what we talked about. Like, do you have an idea why you would get distracted easily from what we talked about so far?
Honestly, so I play Lifeline, as you can see in the video. I
Mm-hmm.
play Lifeline. A lot of my game play, just because of the way that I was told that Lifeline should be played, is to basically be support and to help out my teammates. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, like sticking with like one character, being able to push up with them and stuff like that, and make sure that if they're getting injured, I can help heal them, all that kind of shit. And laying down like cover fire and stuff like that is more of that's more of what I've been kind of putting into it, is just trying to be able to see the situation going on, but my focus kind of wavers as I get into a gunfight,
Mm-hmm.
because now I'm trying to take cover and trying to make sure that I'm trying to take in everything around me, but there's so much going on. I'm trying to do everything at once, not knowing where I should go or where I should be.
So it sounds like there's a bit of panic during fights. Could you call it that? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. What are you usually thinking about in those moments?
Usually it's trying to find an angle that I can open up on.
Okay. Do you have like do you go about it by feeling the game out in those moments, or do you try to think of a solution?
Um, if I was to really think about it, it depends on the fight,
Okay.
really, like the situation. Like if I can see the opponents, and I can take in like my map, like I can have my map awareness, like I know, okay, there's cover here, like there's a bin here, I can use cover here, or I can use cover here, so that way they can't hit me, and I can flank from this area. Then that's a different story. But whereas like in this one, you can see there's a charge rifle, right? I don't know exactly where they're coming from or how far they are,
Mm-hmm.
so it kind of sends me into a panic where I don't know whether I should be covering and making sure that they're not going to hit me, and we rotate out so that way we're not taking a long range fight, because none of my teammates have like long range weapons. So moving in closer to take that long range fight and make it into like a medium to close range fight is like more on my mind, as
Mm-hmm.
well as maybe we could run depending on like how they're hitting me, kind of deal. So there it's more of a thought and thinking a lot instead of like having an actual feel for it.
Okay. All right, that's good to know. I want to emphasize this.
Hey, better run away, bitch. Cracked up for 115 blue.
So what's happening right now in this moment? Like, it doesn't look like you're panicking anymore, but it looks like you're not doing anything. Like,
This one was actually trying to get my teammates to come with me because the
Hey, better
bloodhound there,
run
he was
away,
just kind of
bitch.
sitting there,
mhm.
frozen in one spot, and I didn't want to
Cracked
sit there and possibly be getting beamed
up
by
for
the charge rifle user
115
anymore.
Yeah.
blue.
Especially since I couldn't see that far off. I have only iron sights and stuff like that. And like I said, I wanted to move the fight away and try to open up for more position. But I'm trying to get the Bloodhound and the Bangalore with me, so that way we could actually maneuver properly out of that situation without taking as much damage as possible.
Okay. Um. Yeah. So from my perspective, it doesn't seem like you're doing the most that you can here. Like, I don't hear communication. I know you're posturing.
That's firing over there in fragment.
I know you're posturing, but again, like, how you lead people can be better, and even how you posture can be better. But it's good that you're like trying
15
to
seconds
progress
ago,
through the game.
so they're
And then
on this side of fragment.
right here, you're kind of AFKing again, even though your teammates have gathered up. So what are you waiting for right now? Because clearly you're waiting for something. So what exactly is that thing?
That one there is trying to get the teammates with me to figure out where they wanted to rotate to.
So
Like we were
you're
either
making a
gonna go
decision right
through
now.
Fragment West, so it was either going through Fragment West and like holding up in Fragment West
Mm-hmm.
and trying to get those guys closer, or getting into ring
Okay.
or next ring and getting position in next ring.
All right.
Okay, what are we doing, boys?
I just push on this side with the fragment. Flank around anyway.
So I'll just tell you, like, the like, I've only seen 6 minutes so far, but generally the pattern that I'm starting to see is that there's like an unhealthy amount of preparation,
Okay.
and that manifests in like examples of like thinking and 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 freezing, kind of like pickiness. So yeah, basically there's like sort of like a perfectionist ish approach to where you're only going to be really going about the game in a way that makes you the most comfortable is
Okay.
what I'm starting to see, and that's potentially a problem, but we're gonna keep our eyes on that.
Actually, I'll take that. Better.
We got some rounds too. Fighting.
Scanned and
So yeah, right here there's another
he's still flanking on this side.
like big slowdown, like
Be careful.
I'm really not sure why you guys slowed down so hard here, except maybe to grab the package, which is like not efficient. Although
Okay.
the package has been grabbed and you guys are still looting. So it like what I see, what this game looks like so far is like you guys loot to loot, you know? There's not something pulling you away from it at any point. So we've already talked about this basically, but this is just another example. I think now might be a good time to ask this. How do you think you improve your mechanics? Like aim, positioning, overall just how you move your character and how you like basically how you move, how you don't get hit and how you hit people. How do you think you improve that? How do you think you improve mechanics?
Uh, really, what I've been going by late, like since I started, was just by experience
Yeah.
through, like, as like I've been taking on, like especially even like I said, like I play a lot of pubs, right?
Mhm.
So basically, what would happen is I'd get into a pubs match and we always get told to like drop in hot and stuff like that, loot
Mhm.
up, grab our guns, just friggin' go, right?
Mhm.
And just try not to get hit and be the ones that are doing the shooting. So basically, it's just when, like, for me, for mechanics and stuff like that, it's just been basically taking on those gunfights and just moving
Okay.
is
So
basically what.
getting exposed.
Yeah.
Okay. So it looks like, I mean, it sounds like you know how to do it in pubs, but in ranked it looks completely the opposite to me. So why do you think that is?
Um. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know if it's the mentality towards like pubs and ranked, like having a different mentality towards it, but then keeping the same mentality as when I'm in pubs.
Um hmm. I'm surprised you don't know why it's so different. I'm trying to think of a way we can
Hey, demonic.
figure that out.
Yeah, guy.
There's a lot of
Uh,
common
backpack
reasons
you
why
got. I
it's
got
different
double.
that I could like
I think I got a blue.
bring up, but I don't want
I'll
to
take
like
that.
Okay.
give you the wrong idea.
Guy.
I mean, why do you play ranked in the first place?
Angle spotted.
For the competition. That's 100%. Like I love the competition. I love people just
So
like
facing the challenge, right?
yeah.
Okay. Hmm. How much do you think you challenge yourself in ranked?
Probably not as much as I should.
That's what it looks
Considering
like, but I can't tell like the yeah, I can't tell what you're actually going through. So run me through that.
so basically like when I'm in rank compared to pubs where everybody's just dropping on you all the time at the same time, punching you to death or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Ranked more it's more analytical and a lot more brain power and it should be a lot more team oriented, but I find whenever I go into ranked in with a team, everybody wants to kind of do their own thing and thinks that they're going to be the in-game leader no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I play with friends and stuff like that. They're like, they're going to make call outs. They're going to want to do this. They're going to want to do that. So then I kind of let them try to lead and see where it goes.
Okay.
But like even when I'm like with randoms and stuff like that, when nobody's got a mic or using their ping systems and stuff like that, or I'm trying to use my mic to call out to the random teammates that I solo with.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to listen or they have their own take on things. So as soon as we get in there, they just immediately take over and do their own thing.
Okay.
So it's kind of hard to try to be an in-game leader and then have nobody wanting to listen to you because oh well, I've been playing for like like 9, 10, 12 hours or whatever, so I'm just going to take the lead on this or whatever, and that gets kind of it hurts the team dynamic that I want to try to help build.
Hmm. All right. I feel like you just wrote me an essay, and I'm trying to literally you just gave me so much useful stuff. It's really good. That I did not realize. Okay. All right. Firstly, define what you mean by leading.
So basically, like I know what I want off a drop, right? Like I know I need to have two weapons. I know I should have some throwables, just in case, while we're coming up or whatever, to be able to either get the drop on somebody, like especially if another team's looting or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if they're still looting and I'm done looting and I can, get some hits off of throwables and I have my two weapons, so that way if it comes down to a gunfight, I can swap through weapons and I have my heals, all that kind of good shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So having it where my teammates are on the same page as me, where it's like, okay, we have this, let's go, rotate over here, push these guys because I know these guys are over here.
Mm-hmm.
Building that where they can, trust my words that and have the confidence to know where I'm going and know what I'm doing and have that end game goal so that way we get better placement, better KP, all that kind of shit works out in our favor.
Mm-hmm.
But not having teammates on the same page and you know being kind of clusterfucked in my own head when I'm thinking about it
Yeah.
brings me down. Whereas like I know I could lead the team 100% better if I was more confident in what I actually wanted to do and my decision making skills.
Okay. Um. So you talk about leading with like words, but what about actions? How do you lead people through how you play? What does it look like? Or yeah.
So basically, usually in a game, it'll be like, hey, like especially if I'm jump master, right? If somebody else is jump master, it depends on usually where they want to jump, but making, trying to make decisions off dropship and seeing where they want to go, and then basically it's basically me taking the reins, especially if I am jump master, right? It's taking the reins, saying, okay, guys, listen, we got to loot up because I saw a
All
team
right,
over
wait,
here.
but exclude anything that's verbal. Like your mouth is duct taped, you can't type. What do you do to lead?
Mm, that is a question I do not know.
So you so you just don't know, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's fine. I just want to make sure. Man. Okay. So I'm still just getting better at organizing this stuff. Like it's such a mess. Um
Basically, my experience with leaders, because I've always taken the back seat
mhm.
mostly. Like I had a few friends. One friend, he said he was in Diamond. Like when I first met him, he said he was in Diamond and stuff like that. And he played very selfishly.
Yeah.
He wanted basically, he thought being an Octane main means you stim up, you use your jump pad, you run everywhere super fast by yourself, and then you say, okay, guys, I'm going over here, bye. And that is my very first impressions of, them leading the team,
Mhm.
right? That's how I've always been led. That's how I've been taught to lead, is just, okay, and oh, and use your ping system. Like, oh, you don't know where I'm going, I'll just ping where I'm going. And that's basically it.
Okay.
And it's not, oh, we're gonna hold this spot, or oh, we're just gonna rotate over here because I saw a team over here. It's just go fly by the seat of your pants and just that's it. And selfishly loot is my basic experiences since
Yeah.
starting.
Yeah, so I would say he actually has a decent outlook on how you would lead a team. So I would say generally the way you would want to lead is by what I just wrote down here. You maximize what you do individually. You don't focus on what your team is doing as much. Like you don't play off of your team initially. You proactively play as hard as you can. So you basically play as so basically you'll be maximizing your individual gameplay, and that will tend like you play as fast and proactive as possible. You hunt for opportunities constantly. You always have something that you're looking for, and then generally your team is going to be way behind you or pretty close to you, and yeah, basically you play as fast as possible, and then depending on how your team is relative to you, you react to that. So like if I'm gonna say you need to maximize how many fights you take, and your team just is like absolutely snail pace, and you run across the map and you find yourself like you find a team. It's not even like a 3P situation. You just find a team. Maybe you look for a pick, because if you get a lucky pick, it's a 1v2, and if you're confident enough to look for that pick initially, then the 1v2 after that is possible as well. So maybe that's the situation you're in. But if your team is like not reacting to you whatsoever, and you don't get the pick, and things don't look like they're going well, you have to react to all of this and back out and just reset with your team, or at least get out of that situation. So basically, you want to be enabling yourself to play as proactive as possible, as aggressive, as fast as possible, to maximize the amount of opportunities that you're going to capitalize on and the amount of times you can try to do something and assert yourself into the game and make an impact. You want to maximize all of that while not pushing it too much to the point where you're just gonna like die. Like a good example of doing that incorrectly would be you loot, you get good tempo, so like you get like a lucky purple or something, or yeah, like you get decent loot, and then you react off of it, running to another team looking for a pick. Let's say you don't get the pick, the team is fully aware of you, they're gonna reset, there's no surprise factor anymore, the odds are like really bad if you don't have positioning over them, or good cover and like an escape or something that validates like why you should be doing this. Then you should back out. But maybe you don't back out, you overstay and you make a mistake and you die, and that's great. It's good that because like that's gonna be the outcome most of the time, and it's gonna help you learn. But the difference is like the goal is to maximize what you do without there being a consequence, basically. And you'll have to react to the situation as well, or I guess the situation, which includes what your team is doing, regards to what you're doing. So that's what I would say is like good leading, is maximizing the game as much as you can individually, and then what your teammates do is not really up to you, but you can react to what they do. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it should be.
So I actually have I have this one too. There's a game after the two games that I sent you,
Mm-hmm.
and so I had a sniper on me, and I could see the team, and my teammates were, I don't know, 100 meters away from me or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I ended up getting really good positioning. Like I could actually see the entire team, and the Pathfinder, he was out by himself and he was looting, and his teammates were in the building,
Mm-hmm.
and I ended up picking him off a couple shots, and my teammates, that's the only time they ever have really shown any reaction, is as soon as I start firing at somebody.
So
And it's because
they're just in
like
their
they
own
don't
world.
know.
They're not aware.
Yeah, they're kind of like me, right? Like, because of the way that me and my teammates play, it's always looting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always trying to get to somewhere new, and I just try to, like open a bin or two, whatever, on my way, and then see if, like, there's like extra heals or something like that, because I don't know what's coming up
Yeah.
next or whatever, right? So I just want to have that extra heal or two or whatever, right? So opening those bins and then keep going, but then my teammates like to sit there at the bins and
Yeah.
try to collect
They
everything
make it
that they
they
can.
make it like an activity rather than just something in the on the way.
Yeah, in the grand scheme of things, it's more of hyper focusing on the loot,
Mm-hmm.
because they know, okay, now I got really good loot, but the loot doesn't determine the shots that you take at a team.
Okay.
They think like more ammo is better, more, you know, throwables is better, shit like that. Whereas we don't like taking into accountability of like our own ability and stuff like that. It's more of looting's the activity, fighting's just something that we do when we get into those situations. It's just kind of, the fighting is just kind of there,
Yeah.
but it's not really their end goal to be getting kills.
Okay. So
Like
so
the
okay.
few clips
So
that I've had. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
There's two things I want to talk about with this, and that's basically so how your teammates react to you is kind of like this barrier that you have to play around. It's kind of like draws the lines that you want to dance around, you know? Because like so your team, you know, any given team that you play with, their capability and how they react could be like tiny or it could be way big, and either way your job is not to focus on, it's not to worry about like the size of the potential of your team. It's to kind of like dance around this edge without going over it and dying, you know what I mean?
So it's kind of like maximizing my own potential instead of focusing on their potential.
Exactly, because you can't
Okay.
change that. It's just, well, you actually you can't, you can't really change their potential. I'd say this is part of your potential in a way. It helps you get closer to the edge, but what I'm talking about is communication, basically, like enabling or increasing the likelihood that your team reacts to what you're doing, which I don't know if that would affect like your team's capabilities or yours, but it lets you get closer to the limit. And so no matter what situation you're put in, you want to maximize your capabilities, basically, or not capabilities, your capabilities, but you want to just maximize what you can get out of the situation. And whether it's like a shit team or like a god team that's likely going to carry you, and like if you're used to doing this with a shit team, when you're playing with a god team, you're going to be like struggling to even like go, you know, far. I'm drawing donuts, but yeah, you're gonna get nowhere close to pushing your team's potential by like,
Okay.
because you know you have your own limits as well, and playing within those, it's gonna take time basically. But yeah, so the point is, don't worry about, like, it's like you're put in a cage basically, and you don't want to worry about whatever the cage is. You just want to make the most out of it, because there's really nothing you can do. um I would say like the communication thing kind of gives the perception that the limits have been pushed or the cage has gotten bigger, because it makes it so your teammates can react to you better, but that's still within their limits. Like that's still um, that's more so enabling your own capabilities. So just having the idea that you do as much as you can within the situation, whatever your team is, you want to maximize your freedom within that, and take advantage of what freedom that you do have within that. So leading, this is a big, this reveals a lot about you so far. I'll just go through it again. So yeah, you said how your teammates react has like a big effect on your mental, basically. You said it like brings you down and stuff when they don't react well. But
There's also I noticed too. So, like I said, I play with my sister,
mhm.
and she's all about big brother, and like she'll constantly be like, "Oh, big brother," or like, "Brother, like look over here," and all this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And like I'll already be gone, looking for teams to fight, rotating out, trying to take the best path possible to make sure that we can get into good situations to fight, right?
Mhm.
Well, one day here, so this is just an example of just just our inexperience. So basically, we went up against a Valk and a Pathfinder team, and they end up dipping, right? And there's a team in front of us. This was on, I believe this was on World's Edge, but we're fighting them. This other team was fighting in front of us, and they didn't see us. They didn't take no notice of us. And the Valk team drops out. They run away. And I'm watching them. I have a sniper, right? And I was like, okay, well, let's try to, they fucked off. Let's, watch this. And when they get a knock, we can push, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we can hopefully get some kills in here, right? So me and Souls were watching and we're watching. And I can hear, like, I have pretty decent headset, so like I can hear when there's footsteps and shit like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
My directional abilities aren't the greatest, but her focus isn't really there when we're trying to pick those kinds of fights. Like, instead of focusing on what's in front of her,
Mm-hmm.
she's immediately trying to focus on the surroundings around her, from behind her to the side of her, in the sky. It doesn't matter. It's kind of like, picking daisies almost,
Yeah.
right?
It sounds like this situation like she's panicking, like how
So
you panic sometimes,
we
or anyone.
yeah. So we end up we were gonna end up fighting this team because I heard a knock. So Souls and I were gonna push, and she's like, "There's a team over here," but didn't ping where the team was or where the directional sound was coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, "Can you ping while I'm focusing towards the fight that I can actually see?"
Yeah.
And she's like, "Nope, they're right here." And she gets down because she started focusing firing on the team that was across the map.
Mm.
And so then that puts us, because Souls and I were pushing up to hit this other team, puts us into in between two teams now,
Yeah.
and we couldn't win the fight. Because now instead of a 2v2 with that knock, now it was a 4v2,
Yeah.
because now
Yeah.
they're focusing on a team that's in between them. But that's kind of, like, we kind of all get distracted and stuff like that, but it happens more so in her whenever it's just whenever she hears a sound.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be made known, and then she has to find the source of the sound.
Mm.
And it's not so, like, if me and the one teammate are going for what the goal was originally, now we have to stop and back her ass up because now she's gone, right? And that's kind of how we've been going about, is okay, now we have to go help this person out because that plan wasn't fully put into motion, our original one. So now we have to go help her out because she got downed, and we're trying to get her so that way we can stay a full squad.
Yeah. So what's the problem?
It's more of hitting the pan. I think it's more of we're hitting the panic button too soon instead of keeping our focus on what our end goal is.
I think it sounds like you're having a hard time accepting whatever the situation is, and you get certain expectations, and you get um tunnel vision or stubbornness, whereas the way you want to go about Apex is like pure adaptation. Like whatever happens, you as an individual have to make the most out of it, and you shouldn't worry about really improving others, or well, you can worry about improving others, but you shouldn't worry about what it's like to play with others. You should worry about what you can do. So it's the same
Okay.
thing I just talked about, where no matter what happens, you just gotta roll with it.
So it's more of my own individuality, keep it going at my own kind of pace, and adapting to everything that's going on around me instead of overthinking it and
Yeah.
just going for the one thing.
It's about you have an attachment in these situations that you don't have to have. Instead, you can make the most out of whatever the situation is, rather than um hanging on to that attachment. You know what I mean? So like in that situation, you want it to 3P in the way that you imagined it to go.
Okay.
The situation changed and you saw it as a problem that the situation changed, whereas there's nothing you can do about it
Okay.
to a certain degree, and you just have to make the most out of whatever happens, because you're gonna get caught off guard all the time and you can't hold on to attachments. You have to reduce the amount of attachment you have overall and just like be confident in yourself. So let's use a very basic example. So people like loadouts a lot. People like patterns. They have their habits of how they play and what guns they use, and they're attached to that. So let's say you look for a wing PK, you can't find it. You have R3 Havoc or whatever, and like you see that as a problem because of your attachment. Like you can see that as a problem, or you can just roll with what you have with confidence that you can make it work. So one is adaptive and the other is like a fixation sort of attachment. Like it's expectation versus adaptation.
Okay.
And in Apex, you need to maximize your skill to adapt. And I think this is like your core problem that I'm seeing kind of ripple through all of these things that we've talked about, is that it seems like you have expectations and ideas that you get attached to, which is really normal, but I think it would make like a really big difference if we worked on that. And I won't. So I hate organizing this. It's so hard. So the main problem is that do I want to use the word confidence for this? Confidence. Yeah, so let me just run through some stuff. So you panic during fights, you find yourself frozen in a lot of situations where you start to take in as much as information as possible, and you try to sort of figure out the situation, right? I don't know if I'm remembering that perfectly correct, but
So it's almost like an over
yeah,
analysis
yeah, and
instead of
this is why I
analyzing the
ask
situation.
people. This is why I ask people this question, you know, and I had this sort of red flag, like, or not red flag, but like maybe this is gonna be what we're gonna see today, more preparation. So it's another way you can put it is so like yeah, you're good at reading into things, and so you start to depend on that. That's your strength, right? You've had that strength for a long
Yeah.
period of your life. It's something you're used to. It's like like a leg that you can always depend on, right? So you walk on
Yes.
it the most. Um which is fine, but when you start playing a game and you want to maximize your potential or fulfill your potential, you have like other legs, you know, that are weak. And you really want to strengthen those legs and become like bigger overall and like more of a threat, or do you want to depend on like the same old, you know, something that is already strong and not really gonna change? um kind kind of going off on a tangent a little bit, but I think you know what I mean, what I'm getting at.
Yeah, basically, having one strength is good, but can also be a crutch because this game is it's all about adaptability in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to be analytical is good, but being able to let go and see what's going on around me and being able to kind of maximize my own potential as a player and not worry about everyone else and what they're doing would make it a lot better and find me more strengths than just keeping on to the same old shit that I usually do.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be trying to get you to like fail, basically.
Okay.
Like so what is the when you really boil it down, what is the reason that you stick to your strengths? When
It's
when you would prefer to improve, you still stick to your strengths.
um,
What is the reason?
it's honestly no direction in how to come off because I've always, like I said, I've always been analytical, like ever since I was a kid,
So
right?
it's
Like
a
I could tell,
unfamiliar sort of thing. It's like you
yeah,
won't be able to think of
like
something if you've never experienced it.
yeah, because like
Okay.
ever since I was a kid, like I've been able to help adults with their problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I've been that analytical where it's like I could tell if you're putting on a fake smile, I could help you out with that fake smile, right? Like because I noticed something about you, there's a tick, something off,
Yeah.
right? So like being able to analyze everything has always been my strength, and I've never known anything else.
Mm.
I've always had kind of like a game plan, like even like in real life, right? It's all a checklist, and I've always known how to get to the goals on my checklists throughout life, right? So a game where everything you need to be more adaptable, more fluid, it it's harder for me to be able to know what adaptability is and
Mm-hmm.
how to maximize my potential if I don't know how to strengthen those legs that you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah. I totally get what you mean. That's pretty cool though, like what you've told me. Um yeah, so I guess that's something I can help you with to give you sort of um ideas on how you can implement this stuff because yeah, I mean that's huge that like you talk about basically your perception, like you're like this is like a lot of self-awareness where you realize that your perception is dictated by your experience, and that if I tell you, it's like when I tell a slow player to play fast, they're gonna play slow. If I tell them to play too fast, they're gonna play faster, right? It's because
Okay.
their perception of fast is relative to the default, which is slowness. And this is the same thing that you've like illustrated to me about your default is like this approach, this analytical approach, and it's gonna be hard for you to go in a new direction because you don't really know it. It's like unknown. Like you don't even know. It's like if the path forward is lit and clear, it's not as simple as going off to the right or the left. It's like you don't even know that right and left exist to a certain degree. Um, so you do actually seem very self-aware in that way, which is really good. It's gonna help you be more patient with yourself. I think when you work on new things, you're gonna be less caught off guard with it being really hard because I didn't do an introduction with my coaching this time. I'm doing a bit of things different, but my coaching is generally very challenging, and I try to maximize that. And it seems like you will probably do decent at least with that. Um, so yeah, main problem: attachment expectation versus confidence slash adaptation. So it's basically um, your your default approach
Yeah.
is dependent on too much.
Yeah, because the one thing, like, I'll give you an example. For me, basically, so I, like, when I was 14, right? I
Mhm.
didn't know, like, I wasn't allowed to have a job, right? My mom met my stepdad, and he was into concrete. He needed a guy to do basic wheeling and raking, right?
Mhm.
I didn't know how to do any of this stuff, and he called it first gear or neutral, right? Because I was moving so slow, I didn't know what to do, this, that, and other thing, right?
Mhm.
But as I got older and he needed another guy to help him work and stuff like that, I'd come in because I was working out, right? So I got stronger, so I'd be able to lift the wheelbarrows and shit, right?
Mhm.
Still didn't know how to hold a rake or anything like that. That was out of my wheelhouse, right? That was out of my comfort zone because let's face it, I was still in school, right? I was pen and paper, writing everything down, right? Just listening to teachers. So
Yeah.
the listening part was not the problem. It was the actual physical work and not knowing how to do things. And even when he was teaching me, it was, you know, you have the front of the wheelbarrow, you have the back of the wheelbarrow, you hold the handles, you direct it to where to go, right? But then it's now you're out of neutral and you're in first gear, but you're only working in first gear. So now he wants me to get into fourth or fifth gear, which means, picking up the pace, running faster,
Mhm.
working more of my stamina, that kind of shit while I'm working, right? Trying to figure out that, I don't have to only work at one speed and then maybe possibly screw up the job, right? Same as I worked in a factory and then I started working with my dad again. But in the factory, I didn't have to use tape measures. I didn't have to take very many measurements. I didn't have to work with saws and all that kind of shit, right? So
Mhm.
that was completely out of my wheelhouse. That was something that I had to learn. It wasn't so much adapting to, but the thing is I already had I knew where to go from first gear to fifth gear. So he had a good worker in that way, but not the smartest worker when it came to um, like doing the measurements and doing all of the minute little things that needed to be done for the job. It was just kind of now I'm the bitch. Now I have to like hold the tools or bring
Yeah.
tools, whatever, right? That he needed me to do because he wasn't able to communicate to me properly how to actually do the job and learn those tools and learn those skills.
So
But
it sounds like he put pressure
learning
on you
those skills,
to. It
it
sounds like.
was it, it, it was a lot of how to it wasn't getting out of my comfort zone because I was already still comfortable with it, although I
Mhm.
hadn't done it for those years, right? It was a learning curve and it gave me a new set of skills, but it wasn't big enough to keep me going, right? Whereas this, I still take in the mindset of comfortability to what I'm used to, what I know,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So like I said, I used to be a Call of Duty player, right?
Yeah.
Now in
Yeah.
Call of Duty, a lot of the lower lobbies, right? You don't need to know positioning. You don't. You just pick up the gun. Like you have the gun already. You have your set amount of ammo. You just point and shoot.
Yeah.
That's the basis of all Call of Duty games. Is just point and shoot, right? And get the drop on another guy before he gets the drop on you,
Mhm.
right? So battle royale is a real challenge, especially having to, it's more adaptiveness than having being set in your own ways, but I just don't know how to get there.
Okay.
Kind of like the same
Yeah.
as
So
when I
you're
was
aware of
in
it.
real life.
You're aware of it, and you're aware that you don't know how to get there. That's that's good, and it makes sense. Like talking about your past experience, why um things may not have like helped you learn how to do this. Like like school, for example. We go through years and years of school, and it is like they teach you how to learn things in a way that is completely the opposite of how you should learn a lot of things. This is one of them. This is like a big example I completely forgot that you mentioned this, but watching videos on how to get better and stuff is very like reflective of like a learning style that has been taught, not one that quite makes sense.
It's
Because
sorry, if you don't
there's
mind me interjecting here for a second.
you're
It's
good.
it's more straightforward. I noticed with school, because like I have a very hyperactive mind,
Mm-hmm.
right? I would get bored in school because they couldn't make it entertaining. They couldn't make it something that, I wanted to learn.
Mm-hmm.
But the things that I really wanted to learn, I would hyper focus on, right?
Yeah,
So, but school, they try to teach you, everybody sits in a straight row, straight line. You shut up, you put up your hand if you need to talk.
yeah.
That's your learning,
That becomes
right?
part of you, how you approach things, right?
So, yeah, so being able to, watch people do things and take, like I said, like from multiple streamers, depending on what they say, you try to match it up with other streamers. It's not just, okay, I'm gonna watch this one streamer and take everything he says into account. It's, you kind of do the research, just kind of like you did in school, right? You do the research and you put in multiple streamers and try to find a common denominator of what they're saying to try to improve yourself. But
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, if you don't know exactly where you're going wrong, I'm not going to improve.
All right, so what does that process look like? Is that a conscious process where you're sort of taking mental notes and stuff like that as you watch, or what is it like? Just give
Yeah,
me a quick rundown.
so basically I don't watch just lifeline mains, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
like to try to be fluid. I like to try out different mains and stuff like that. Lifeline I do have the most kills on, but I don't 100% depend on her abilities, right? A lot of it for me is my aim and trying to get better position and movement, right? Like if I can
Okay.
move, I'm not
Okay.
going to get shot.
So
If I
basically, you're compartmentalizing skill into things that you care about and things you don't care about, and and within each of those categories, you can split them up into like things like positioning, movement, aim, etc., etc. Right?
Yeah,
Okay. Continue.
but so basically it's like you'll have some streamers that are like, "Oh yeah, I play this aim trainer and that's how I got so good at my aim because I take this into account when I'm moving, right? Like it's just muscle memory now. So like once you do this, you'll get it'll become muscle memory and it's just easy after that, right? Or like, oh, you need to be able to strafe to be able to like dodge the bullets or to
Mm.
be able to get the drop on somebody, like, you're watching them climb a building or something like that, right? And trying to get better positioning on the building or get high ground or some
Yeah.
shit like that,
So
right?
you're like what I'm hearing is that you're seeing different ways to get better, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's huge.
Instead of, instead of putting it all in, like, I guess it'd be like keeping it all as one, it's more of it's different,
Yeah.
right? Like it's each its own category, not just one thing that
Do
you
you
should be,
do you
you
have
know.
the gist that like, or do you hold the idea that like you need to split things up and work on them and be aware of them to get better at them?
Um, as far as my experience has gone, I believe I do because like I notice when like I'm taking a gunfight or something like that, I'm more hyper focused or tunnel visioned when I'm aiming down sights because my aim has to be on the person to be able to hit those shots instead of like moving and actually like, taking into account where I am and what I'm doing. It's like as soon as I aim down the sights, it's kind of like almost like a tunnel vision,
Mm-hmm.
and I completely forget like everything else that's around me. Like even like noises and stuff like that, like I can hear them,
So
but it's like
is this a
blocking them out.
problem, or what is this in your like what do you think about that?
Um, honestly, if
Like what is that an example of? I'm getting a hard time. understanding what this is an example of.
I don't know what that'd be an example of. It's more just um
Well, what made it come to your mind from what we're talking about? Because I was talking about like um trying to become aware of certain things to get better at them, and then you use that as an example. So what is that?
yeah, that's so basically that's just how my mind thinks, honestly. Like it it brings up, I don't know, it's almost like a tick in my brain, if you get what I mean.
Well, it sounds
So
like you're
like
just focusing, like the whole tunnel sort of thing. Like that's when you focus on something, your brain activity drops significantly. It's because you're getting rid of static, you know? So that tunneling sounds fine to me. Do you think it's like does it come off as a bad thing, or have you been taught that that's bad, or
for me, in my experience watching videos and stuff like that, a lot of people say that tunneling has always been bad. It doesn't yield the best results
yeah.
because now if you're like just focused on your aim, right? Now your movement's gonna be sloppy or your
All right.
positioning's gonna be sloppy because now you're not thinking about that. You're thinking
Yeah, yeah.
only of your
I get all that,
moves, right?
but tell me um like why can't you accept that you're tunneling? Like why might you be tunneling?
Uh,
Cuz if
honestly,
you can tunnel and say, "Okay, I'm tunneling." That's fine. There's probably a good reason for why I'm tunneling, whether it's how I train. You know, whether the tunneling is good or bad, it's not like there's something wrong with you. It's like there's like a reason that you tunneled.
honestly, it's been there all my life, man. Like as soon as there's a task ahead of me,
Hmm.
it's immediate tunnel vision.
Okay.
I've always had it. So whether it's,
And
trying to
people
figure
have
out an
taught you
application,
that it's
it
bad.
yeah, because like say I'm in math class or something,
Okay.
right? Like I was in math class and it was getting boring, right? I wouldn't focus on that, but I would start drawing, right? And I would start tunneling on the drawing. And the next thing I know, an hour's gone by
Hmm.
and I haven't done any of the math work and I don't understand a damn thing about it.
Okay, okay. So let me go off on something real quick before I forget about it. So basically, this is not a bad or a good thing, right? It's like pros and cons. Like you hard focus and that's really good, but like maybe you'll forget about other things, which is part of the focus, which can hurt you. It can happen at inappropriate times. But so basically it's like you're working with like a certain tool. It's like everyone has a certain toolbox and this is like one of your tools that, and you have to accept the tools that you have. So given your toolbox, everyone has a task to do. And everyone has different tools and they can't really do much about it. But you can get better at doing the task without changing your tools. So you don't need to have the impression that like certain tools are bad or certain tools are good. You just need to have the impression that you will naturally figure out how to do that task with whatever tools you have. And especially in a BR, a game that is this dynamic, because this game has incredible macro play, decision making, and incredible micro mechanical on the fly sort of stuff. So you can go about it in like basically any way possible. And anyone who's going to tell you the way it should be played is completely wrong. There is not a way this game should be played. And even at the highest level, people aren't like near the skill cap. So people who act like they know how things should be approached, don't listen to them. So basically my point is, yeah, you have this thing, this tunneling sort of thing, and you see it as a problem because other people have told you it's a problem. But I'm here to tell you that it's not a problem. You can use it to your advantage. You just need to embrace it and accept it. And your subconscious and how you get good at the game is going to work around that, just like how it works around everyone else's individuality. Do you know what I mean? So like you are an individual and this is one of the things that defines you as an individual, and it's not gonna Like it's gonna be as good as it is bad. Just like pretty much every other trait that everyone has that will influence how they play the game, but it will become a problem when somebody else tells you it's a problem and then it begins to bother you. The actual problem is that you've been convinced that it's a problem, and that bothering that comes from that, like, that distracts you. That will not be a benefit in any way. It's not like a pro and con. That is pure con. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So basically, it's I've been conditioned to have my tools dulled when they should have been sharpened from the beginning.
Yeah. So they're telling you
And now that they're so
to not
dull, I
use
gotta
it,
sharpen them.
rather than saying, yeah, fuck it, it's fine. And it shouldn't even be addressed in the first place. It should just be like something that's part of you that doesn't ever get like pointed at, you know? It's just like it's not even like worth mentioning. It's just fine. Like this is how everyone is. But from your experience, for whatever reason, they've pointed it out. Maybe because of like school experience and how school teaches people to learn in such a rigid way, to where maybe this thing gets like uh pointed out or whatever. But you know what I mean, right? Like it's not something to worry about, and you're going to figure out the game on a subconscious, natural way, and your brain is going to use this tool to its advantage, however it sees fit, and you got to let it do that and not see it as a problem. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Instead of having them having it almost like just be completely negative all the time, just
Yeah,
make
like
sure that I'm sharpening the tools that I have
yeah,
at my disposal.
the tools, you don't even need to be aware of them necessarily. The problem, the only thing that we need to worry about here is that people aren't convincing you that these things are a problem. That is the problem in itself that we need to focus on, or that we need to move past. I don't know how hard or easy that would be for you, but that's here. Let me timestamp this actually. 122. Okay, I'll just call it tool rant. That's huge that you brought that up. Like you're actually like a very very coachable person. Like you bring up a lot of stuff that has a lot of impact on like how you learn and how you play, and it's really good. Completely lost at where I was going. There's so much at this point, but I need to simplify things a little bit. So okay, I think now is a good time to to do the introduction that I usually do, and
Okay.
because I'm a coach, and I've just told you that anyone who tells you how things should be done, like how anyone who tells you how you should play, it should not be listened to, and I'm a coach. So let's explain my coaching a little bit. Man, this is an interesting one. I'm like so disorganized, but I think like getting a lot of really good information that we can work with. So basically, the way I coach is this equation. Improvement rate is what we want to focus on. Doesn't matter where you are or anything like that. You know, I'm here to help you improve faster. And the way we do that is by experience and exposure, these two variables. So experience, the quality of your experience is basically the complexity of your environment, because I guess my coaching is based on like subconscious adaptability or adaptation. So basically what I mean is I'm going to try and challenge you the most with the confidence that your brain will adapt, because I have the idea that you're going to learn based on your environment, and your learning rate is mostly dictated by your environment. And if you focus on your environment, you don't need to try and consciously learn. You can just have fun and let your brain do the work, the learning. So, for example, babies don't give a fuck about anything. Babies could not be convinced to give a fuck about anything because they don't know how to speak English or whatever language. But they learn all these insane things anyways because they're surrounded by them, and that's how the brain works. Whatever you're surrounded by, you are going to become, or it's going to become a part of you. You're just going to learn it. The brain is amazing, and the subconscious learning ability is like more powerful than you could ever consciously do anything. Like the subconscious is way stronger than our conscious. So that's what I'm working off of with my coaching approach. So what we'll do is we want to increase this experience quality, level of complexity of your environment, because it's like I'm giving your brain something to work with. The more complex of an environment you're in, the more it has to adapt to, the more it can adapt to. So for example, if you're playing against a bot in Kovacs or a low-level player, it's like there's not much challenge there. If you play against a really good player, it becomes so complex that your brain is being pushed. Your brain needs to be pushed. It's never going to get good at anything it doesn't have to. So it's very unlikely that you're ever going to like surpass your environment to a crazy degree. You can surpass it to a certain degree through basically creating challenge for yourself, but that is heavily limited by your willpower and your determination and things like that, which relative to the grand scheme of things, they're negligible. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay, so
It's more of the more challenging it is, the more it opens you up. Kind
yeah.
of deal.
Yeah, so basically your brain adapts to things that it experiences, and the more complex experience you can give it, the more fuel it has, like the more material it has to work with. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, it's more like I've seen this shit before. I know how to kind of counter this, all that kind of shit.
yeah, exactly. And it's not something you need to be consciously going over in your head. It's something that your brain is going to take care of itself, and it's going to become a feeling that is much more complex than any thought. You're just going to understand it on a very deep level, and react to it instinctively or instinctually. So yeah, generally it's going to be the difficulty of your enemy, and like the basically just the level you're playing at, the environment that you're at, the difficulty, the complexity of the environment that you spend your time in. And so so that's like the quality, the exposure. So all this is great, playing against great players. Let's say you're playing against diamond players rather than what you normally play against. If it's silver or gold or whatever it is, it's gonna increase your improvement rate, like in the experience variable. But if the exposure is bad, it can really get you nowhere. So an example of people with like shit exposure is basically how much contact you have with the game each time you play it. So an example is how many times you fight per game. So someone with bad exposure would hide and not seek out fights and not challenge themselves. And this can make sense when you're trying to climb ranked. When you're trying to do like a tier climb, like when you're trying to go plat to diamond, diamond to masters, whatever it is. The reason that you would want to do that is to increase the experience quality, and once you get there, you play in a more challenging, fun way, which will bring your exposure back up. And it's unlucky that like the rank system is designed in a way where it discourages exposure. It makes it so you want to fight less and less. But when we're trying to improve, we're not going to yield to the ranked system. So does that all make sense? Basically, like improvement rate is basically the difficulty of your environment and how much interaction you have with the environment.
Yeah.
and that it's a subconscious process.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
I
thanks, Bobby.
remember, I think it was the beginning of season 9. I was in gold 2, and a couple of my friends got to plat,
Mm-hmm.
and they still wanted to play with me. And you can play with one tier below you.
Yeah.
And I noticed even in the lower plat lobbies, like it was kind of still almost like that gold feeling, but people are trying to still be more cautious, more
Yeah,
aware of like their surroundings, the teams that are around them, and
for
that kind of
sure.
stuff. Like I went into plat lobby a couple times with friends and stuff like that, and it actually for some it just kind of felt easier just because you kind of had that little bit more time where every other team is also trying to think of ways to kind of keep themselves out of fights. So if you're a little bit more aggressive and trying to, get into those fights and looking at the situation, it was a lot easier to pick teams off
Mm-hmm.
in those plat lobbies, and I wasn't getting as much of a challenge as the guys that want to run and gun in gold.
Yeah. So that's an example of like your inherent strengths before playing the game, kind of matching what people tend to build as they climb in this game. And that's gonna last until a certain point, and then it's gonna get really hard. Um, but for sure, like the randomness of a diamond lobby. I remember when I first started playing, and like I was very used to pred lobbies, and I would go to diamond, and I would just like I would be confused like by the stuff people were doing, and it would really catch me off guard. And I will add on top of all of this how we want to like maximize the challenge and the complexity, the overall complexity of the environment. We also do want to play like a very minimal but like a relevant amount, like let's say 5% of your game plays pubs or 10% of your game plays pubs, like a very low amount. It's still going to make a big difference because of that staying honest factor where like you have to you have to know like what not to expect and what to expect, or you have to expect the unexpected basically,
Okay.
and it will help you become a bit more well-rounded in that way of that example of playing against worse players sometimes being even more difficult. So I'll give you like a spending time ratio that I think is like a good medium, a pretty foolproof sort of thing. But generally, we wanna maximize the complexity, like the difficulty overall. Um, so yeah, basically my coaching is subconscious adaptation. You just play, you have fun, you don't worry about anything, you don't try to consciously think about things, you don't even think about your goals in game, you think of them outside the game. You let yourself do your thing, and you trust your brain to do its thing, what it's designed to do. Like it's unstoppable. Like whether you like it or not, your brain is going to adapt and learn from your environment and how you spend your time. So that's what we're trying to maximize because it's completely reliable. Um, yeah, so I'm not gonna tell you directly how to play the game. I'm gonna look at, or I guess I've looked at your gameplay, and things have come up, and I try to figure out something deeper, not like, I haven't told you loot faster, demonic. You need to loot faster. You know, we went through the process of like why you looted slow, which became a an aspect of your gameplay that affected it almost. It rippled through all of your gameplay. So um what was my point in bringing up all that? The what were we talking about? Oh yeah, we were talking about the tool thing. So yeah, your brain is gonna subconsciously learn stuff, and you don't need to worry about any of these nuances about yourself or even really about the game. You don't need to worry about them that much. Naturally, you're gonna work them out. naturally everything is going to become naturally your brain is going to figure out how to use everything to its advantage and avoid all of the things that are not beneficial. You know what I mean? So you can so what I want your approach to be with the understanding of your goal is that you're going to challenge yourself, you're going to be confident that your brain and your subconscious is going to figure this stuff out, and we're going to maximize what that needs from you, what your subconscious needs from you. So what we can give your subconscious is you know, things like patience and like trust and acceptance and like basically what I've done is like where is it, where did I write it? Yeah, right here. So what we've done, the actual work is like stuff like this, like I want you to work on not letting these things like be recognized as problems, and then you're still going to have all this conditioning that people have done to you. You're going to have all that conditioning, but when you start to cut yourself a break and be like, well, it's not actually a problem, they just convinced me that it was a problem, and then you stop believing it when like they show you and they tell you that it's a problem and people tell you how you should play the game. Once you stop listening to those things, all the conditioning is going to start to melt with your time playing the game. The time playing the game is going to just beat all that stuff down, and it's gonna fall apart naturally. So you don't need to like directly work against these things that we've talked about that affect you negatively. You need to accept how it is and stop feeding it basically, and it will go away. And then we want to maximize and or I guess we want to optimize how you play the game or how you approach the game, not how you play the game. But so, man, okay. So your main problem basically is the whole attachment expectation. I'm running out of water. I'm like losing the ability to speak. So this is the main thing we want to hit from all this. The over preparation, we can call it. So, and then you're aware it's hard to understand how we're gonna do that. So let me think of how exactly. And then I know this is mechanical coaching, which is why I went over this to see if we need to hit on this, but it seems like you understand it very well. Like experience is simply how you get better mechanics. And your brain needs to be pressured to have better mechanics for it to learn better mechanics. Otherwise, even if you learned, it would just forget. It would throw it away. It's a waste. So we're gonna be trying to challenge you in ways that make your mechanics better. So basically, I want you to play wrong because your perception of what is wrong right now. So I want you to play, or your perception of what is like faster, or it's the thing I told you earlier about telling slow players to play fast. They're gonna play slow. So I want you to play wrong. I want you to play too fast. I want you to play like I want you to like not think and or not pressure yourself to think.
Just basically go with my feelings, like the
Yeah.
gut feeling that
Yeah.
when I'm playing.
So okay, so here's the big thing is that you depend on your strength. Well, it's not really because you're avoiding failure. It's more so unfamiliarity with other options. So I need to like really go in on the other option, which is how we're gonna make you adaptive rather than speculative. because preparation is speculation. Basically, it's like you're reading into the future and trying to align things, and it may or may not go well. I want to say what I want you to do literally, but I feel like I need a different way to explain this. I'm trying to think. How am I gonna get you to not? How am I to get? How am I gonna get you to do this in a healthy way where you're not directly inting what I'm trying to figure out right now? Okay, firstly, I will say the first thing we need to do is get rid of the pressure that you need to prepare. Okay, so if I tell you this, it's gonna kind of reduce, but oh, this is actually so hard. Like, you've given me so much, and I see the problem so clearly, but there's like so many ways we could go about this. I'm not sure which is like the best one. All right, so I'll basically give you a green light, okay? It's like I'm giving you a green light. Like, yeah, you don't actually have to think and prepare and worry too much. And so we're gonna try to get rid of that. It's like a monster spawner, you know. We gotta get rid of that, and then the monsters will die off. Um, this is kind of conditioned into you, like this sort of preparation approach, and I think it will go back to normal if if you if you like you have something to tell you that you don't need to worry about it anymore. The second thing we're gonna do, I don't want to force your gameplay. I'm trying to think of a way to not force your gameplay, but the direct outcome that I want, the direct like gameplay hit that I want is for you to play faster and to like take fights and do things that you think are gonna be a failure, basically. I don't know how to word it better, but um okay. Okay, third thing. How to get better. Or how to play. Okay. Okay. Third might be the final one. Like the leading thing we talked about, how you need to get to the edge of the limit that is presented by your team. I'm not sure if we can implement that right now. Thinking about it, because the perception of like the barrier could be really underestimated, basically. It could seem a lot worse than it actually is. But I that could be your intent in this. Like this could be manipulated into kind of playing around the line of that barrier that like we have the perception of. Okay. I don't know how to word this. All right, so what I'm trying to write right now is basically, so what I want you to do right now with this this part of the goal, what I'm trying to explain is like this is the goal, right? Like riding the edge, making full use of the entire environment, right? Or the entire situation, right? You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's the goal, and that's a skill in itself. It's like one of the hardest things you can possibly do in any competitive activity or almost anything ever is taking full use. And so most people, you know, it's really hard to do that. So they'll play it safe and they'll stay around like this area, like in the middle, you know?
Okay.
Because the chance of them accidentally, you know, they're going to be like doing circles like this, and sometimes it's going to peak out like this. It's going to go all the way up here. So if normally you're trying to maximize this, it's like you're going to accidentally cross the line and die. You know, you're going to be pushing yourself to the limit, and you're going to be, it's going to be really likely that you accidentally fuck up and like push it too far, and you thought you could get more than you could have, and you fail, right? You cross the line. So with the goal being that we wanna like go around the edge. Oh, I can't go around the edge like this. We need to build that skill, and you don't need to worry about what goes into that skill. This is something you're gonna learn through experience, just the same way you're gonna learn your mechanics through experience. So we want to make you feel free to, like, you know, fucking go crazy, not reside in the center. We want you to expand and like not worry if you accidentally go outside the border and fuck up your play.
So more or less, instead of staying safe and comfortable where I am, you want me to more ride that line and be okay
Yeah.
with going over the line.
So this is a mistake. Oh my god, why am I writing like this, bro? So this is an example of a mistake when you cross the line. If you can, another example of a mistake would be staying too far to the center. That's like you're losing value here, you're losing value here. Here you die, here you AFK in a building, right?
Okay.
What are the pros and cons of both of these? Can you give me like just a few words, whatever comes off the top of your head? Because there's both something negative about them. I won't say about the positive yet, but what's the negative?
The negative of staying inside is I have no possibility of growing
Yeah.
because I'm not comfortable getting outside
Yeah.
of what I'm because it's just that's it. It's just the comfort
Now look
zone.
at this. Everything is familiar here. You're familiar here. Over here, dude, you're practicing so many skills, you know? Different weapons, different positioning, different fights that you take, different types of teamwork to do. There's like a million things. Like it's literally endless. The amount of uh like material that you're giving your brain to work with. Over here, it's just like you can you can actually simplify this stuff into like things that you're aware of, which is a reason why limiting yourself to gameplay that you're aware of the outcome is really bad, because the things that you can be aware of is very limited, very limited. So if you only go off of what you're comfortable with, you're gonna kind of go inward instead of outward. You're gonna be working inward rather than outward. So yeah, with
So
this you're not gonna learn.
okay.
That's completely right. So what about when you go too far?
More mistakes.
But
Maybe not being able to learn from the mistakes, by going too far.
what's the outcome of the mistake?
Learning
What's the
how
bad
not to
outcome?
make those mistakes. What's that?
What's the bad outcome of a mistake?
The bad outcome of a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
In game, I die.
Yeah. In game, you die.
Making that mistake.
So in game, you die. As the bad, as the good, you learn, you grow, and it's completely like inverse of when you play safe. So it's whichever one you want to value. You can see the potential of like embracing mistakes, you know, and the limitations of not embracing mistakes. So that's the idea I'm trying to give you with this. Basically, you know, see the value in mistakes and let yourself make them, and understand that it's gonna be like really disorganized when you do this. It's gonna be literally like you're gonna be like doing this and then like that. You know what I mean? It's literally what it's gonna look like, and that's what it's gonna feel like too. It's gonna feel like, wow, dude, I'm like really doing nothing, and then I just fucking die. Why am I even playing? It just feels like shit. But with time, you're gonna kind of like build a better understanding, and like you're gonna get a little bit more before you mess up, and then over a long period of time, you're gonna start like really developing space for your gameplay relative to the situation. And just keep in mind the situation is static. Or it's not static. The situation is always changing, but it's out of your control, and you want to be thinking about how you act within that situation. So I hope that all makes sense. Does it feel like it makes sense?
Yeah.
All right, so that's probably your biggest goal, and then the other things are sort of like scaffolding sort of support, like this green light, like I'm telling you, you don't need to be doing this, like this preparation sort of stuff. Like there's no need, and it you know, that's your strength that you depend on, and there's so much more out there.
Okay.
And then yeah, people telling you how to play. So this comes down to like just that this is a subconscious process. So you don't need to be told how to play. You don't need to think how to play. You don't. And it will get in the way. It will limit you. It will like be addicting, and it will be comfortable. But if you don't do that, because a lot of the time you start thinking about things, it's because you're trying to think of something more comfortable, or think of something that will create comfort. And the less you do that, the more you're going to go down into like instinctual gameplay and reactive, and you're going to learn things naturally in a very open way, which is where we'll talk about how I want you to watch gameplay, what I want you to watch, and what it's going to do and why. So let me make sure I emphasize that this is like relative to leading. I'll just emphasize it. Yeah, so I think we hit on all the major things. Pretty much everything, really. I'm surprised. Did not feel like I was gonna think of anything. So firstly, this is how you're gonna think of your goal. I tell this to everyone. I think it's a good approach. when you're playing the game, do not worry about any of this shit. Do not worry about anything that I have taught you while you're playing the game. Only think of it outside the game. Because in game, you want to let yourself do things honestly, and like, if you're gonna fuck up in a certain way, you don't want to artificially avoid it. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to distract yourself from the game to artificially prioritize a certain problem. Or not artificially prioritize, but basically just don't distract yourself from the game by worrying about your problems. Just think about it after and realize it after. And then when you go into the next game, so basically the more like unraveling you do outside the game is more it's going to reflect in the game. You don't need to will yourself to be better in whatever way in the game. Just trust that you're gonna make progress in the game without thinking about it, and that you don't have to do any sort of like forcing. Rather kind of motivate yourself outside the game to do these things and anything of that sort. Does that make sense? Hello?
Yeah, so basically it's just instead of constantly putting that to the forefront of my mind, keep
Mhm.
it back more tucked away and acknowledge what I've done and what I basically
Yeah.
can do now
Yeah.
while I'm
Just play the game. Just play the game. Don't pressure yourself to have a single worry. You're gonna think about things while you're playing the game. You're gonna worry about certain things, and you're gonna worry about these goals while you're playing the game. But don't worry about how you're worrying about these goals, how it just naturally comes up. Whatever naturally happens while you're playing the game, don't worry about it. Don't tell yourself not to do anything. Whatever happens, happens. Just play the game, and yeah, just don't worry about it. Like, don't worry about this. Like, even don't worry about this. Just don't play the game. Whatever happens, happens. Just accept whatever the outcome is. So, that being said, this is how I'm gonna have you watch gameplay and the ratio of what you're gonna play. Keep in mind you can squeeze in some pubs. Like I said, like, keep yourself honest. It's good to play against bad players a little bit, but like I will say 95% of your playtime, I would say keep it ranked. Um, and then like, yeah, 5% can be like pubs. You know, like for me, I like pubs even less than most people. I used to like them a lot, but um, yeah, I'll play pub. Like, I'll spend like one day out of like 2 weeks to play pubs, and like I still learn from that, and it's surprising. Like, you'll learn a lot from playing ranked, but then you'll play pubs, and like people will really surprise you, and it will be a challenge in that way that you're not used to people doing things that are a bit more random. So it's good to keep a little bit of pubs in there. But yeah, I want you to maximize how much you play ranked, and if that's limited by external factors, just try to make the most out of it, like what we talked about with this. Same thing in game, same thing in real life. You know, make the most out of what you can. What you watch, you know, I like to recommend 35-65 ratio. It seems like you're 30-70. It's like, that's good. Keep it around there, and you'll be definitely good. You know, and when you watch things, go about it with the same approach that I've given you for gameplay, where you're trying to maximize the exposure and the experience quality. So try to watch players that have that sort of um, that structure where they play in a playful way that is conducive to learning and improvement, and they're not afraid to make mistakes, and you know, they move on from it and all that. And that's going to become part of you from watching it, as well as all the nuances of their gameplay. Your brain is going to really absorb um, their gameplay, and it's gonna really affect how you go about the game just naturally and how it feels. So, does that make sense so far?
yeah.
So, for example, let's say you watch Ras. Ras has a very like his gameplay really stands out, and like one of the ways his gameplay stands out is like his close range dodging and how he moves in a close range situation. You'll realize that if you start watching hours of Ras play, you'll feel that like come out in you without even the intent of doing it. And that's the approach I want you to have. I want your approach to be basically you watch for fun and trust your brain to grab what is relevant. Because if you consciously try to learn, you're going to be applying your basically limited perception and artificially prioritizing it, artificially emphasizing things that don't matter as much as you're emphasizing them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
Yeah, it's more like more aware that you're trying to be, the more it hinders your actual learning.
yeah. So don't even watch them with the intent of getting better. Just watch them for enjoyment. Just find these players that are good who you happen to enjoy and just spend time enjoying watching them. And all that learning stuff is going to happen naturally. And the more the less expectation and like intent you have when watching that, and the more you can just enjoy it, the more open and yeah, basically the more open you're gonna learn and take from them.
Okay.
Yeah, your brain is gonna like grab stuff that is more relevant, more accurately, and more honestly. So yeah, make sure you're watching good players, like players who are on like top 10 teams NA/EU. Ideally, you want to be doing that. I do recommend these players as like the first ones that come off the top of my head usually. Um, because like Zach Mazer is probably my number one recommendation because he plays in like a very playful way that he learns a lot. So yeah, you get the point. Oh, I wanted to say like think of it like a like have you played MMOs or anything with like a talent tree?
Yep.
Yeah, so it's kind of like that. Like think about like some people will watch Zach, Ras, and Hal. Some people will watch Selly, Nathan, and Hardeki, and like depending on what mixture or like who you watch, it's gonna affect your gameplay differently, and it's gonna be a very noticeable effect with enough time watching, with enough exposure and input to your brain. It's gonna make like a significant difference. And so, yeah, watch people who you want to like spec into. I will say it's weird, but it like kind of works that way. Um, yeah, so that's basically everything. These are your main goals. I think I've done a decent job of organizing them. I will go over it like one more time before I send it to you, but I'm gonna send you this text file. I'm also gonna upload a video, like I'm recording this, and that will be like unlisted or public, up to you. I'll ask you later in DMs. But yeah, so I'll send you this, and just yeah, you're free to ask any questions like in between sessions or whatever. I'm always pretty much available, and I encourage it because when you start going about new things, you're gonna encounter some crazy new experiences that tend to leave people a bit bewildered. So, do you have any questions for now, like thoughts?
I don't really have any questions right now. Um, what you said all seems to make sense, and I've got the general grasp on everything now of how you want me to go about playing and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm pretty good, pretty
Cool.
set.
All right. All this stuff is gonna be like 50% in your head right now because I mean, this was a long session. I just went over because you know, you paid for multiple and you gave me so much good stuff this session that I just had to work on the short-term memory and not let us forget it. So yeah, I definitely did. I definitely went over a lot more than usual in this session, and it's gonna be a bit of a shock. So yeah, give it time, and it will kind of make a bit more sense, and just ask any questions.
Okay.
Yeah, so that'll be all.
Okay. Awesome.
It's good talking to you.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. All right, see ya.
Have a good one.
You too. That was cool.